What is it like staying in a hostel at the age of 36 for the first time in Barcelona, Spain? Stay tuned to find out. Hi everyone, Tasha Danielle here. If you are new to my channel, welcome. This channel is all about how I quit my job in June 2022 to travel the world solo. Let's talk hostels. If you're not familiar with what a hostel is, it is basically a dorm for adults. Well, you're an adult when you are in college, but it is a place where solo travelers can go rent a bed for one or more nights. You can choose to have your own room, or you can choose to share a room with up to 2 other people, up to 18 people. So usually the hostel, you have to share a bathroom, and if you want to have your own bathroom, there are some hostels that do have that, but you have to pay more, and that's really when you have a private suite. So that is what a hostel is. It's basically a place for solo travelers to rent a bed and to get to meet other fellow solo travelers. Now, I did anticipate staying in a hostel sometime during my world travel, but I did not expect for it to be the very first, the very first accommodations that I booked solo. I actually started my journey with my 2 cousins and best friends. We started in Paris. So when they went back home to the States, I decided to go to Barcelona, Spain. And this is during peak season. This is in June of 2022. And hotel prices, Airbnb prices were through the roof. And I really wanted to go to Barcelona. And so I figured it's time to look at hostels. I also knew that hostels is a great way to meet people. I am pretty introverted. Like, I meet people when I put forth the extra effort. Usually extroverts find me and they make all my friends for me. It's been that way since I was a child. So I knew that I was going to pick to stay at a hostel at some point, so I can be able to easily meet people, because you're sharing a common area like the living room or kitchen area. So you're going to bump into other people. So this is what I was expecting to do, or why I was expecting to eventually stay in a hostel. But it happened first time out. So let me share with you how I selected my hostel. I used Hostel World to find the hostel that was a perfect fit for me. Hostel World is recommended by a lot of solo travelers. You also have the option to just Google hostels, but Hostel World I particularly like because you can filter and you can see a lot more reviews on Hostel World than you would see on Google, in my opinion. So I got on the app, put in the dates I was looking to stay in Barcelona, and then I set my filters. I did not want to stay in a hostel that did not have a 9 or higher rating on a 1 to 10 scale. I also wanted to have my own room in a hostel. Like I mentioned before, you can have your own room or you can share a room. To be honest, the thought of sharing a room at my age was like, I am too old to be sharing a room. Like, no. But I ended up sharing a room anyway after my first 3 nights, because even though I was saving money in a single room, I could save even more money in a shared room. But to start off, I only wanted to be able to have my own room, and I wanted to have my own bathroom as well. And I thought I did. That's a hiccup that I made. I actually ended up having my own room but sharing a bathroom, but I'll get to that later. So that is what I put in my filters. I look for a private room with an ensuite and high ratings. Now, I also like to read the reviews, and I look for recent reviews. So if a hostel has like 9,000 reviews and it's a 9-star rating, I know that it's giving more weight than a hostel that has a 10-star rating with only 4 reviews, right? So I'm looking for consistency of people saying it's clean or if they felt unsafe. I'm looking to see if there's female solo travelers that will go there often. So I'm looking for all of this, right? And then I made my selection. So I was able to find a private room, a 9-star rating or higher. Cleanliness and safety was big to me. Oh, and I also looked to see if people mentioned that they were able to meet people in the hostel doing activities, because not every hostel is the same. Not every hostel is trying to build camaraderie. Some hostels are just meant for you to sleep and go home. I mean, not go home, but go out and explore the area you're visiting. And for me, I wanted to make connections early on in my travels. I didn't want to put myself in a bubble starting out the gate. So I did that for the solo part of booking. And then I also decided to book 5 nights in a shared room with women only. So it was 3 other women in the room. You have that option when you're booking hostels to stay in a room with only women. I do also see that for male only rooms. I don't see them as much as I see for women only, where you can do a mix meaning there's going to be women and men in the room. So I personally wanted to be in a room with only women. So when I went to select the nights for more than one, with not me just having my own room, I selected women only rooms. So that's what I used to find my hostel, and I ended up going with Hostel One Parello because the ratings were really high and the location just kept being mentioned in the reviews as a great place. It was centrally located, and so I went with that option. You can see how much I spent for 8 nights. Now, I booked 3 nights solo, and I also booked 5 nights in a woman-only dorm. If I didn't like the first night solo, I wasn't going to stay the other 5 nights. I gave myself that wiggle room so I could cancel if I didn't like the hostel, and I wanted to check out and see what those rooms look like. So you can see that is how much I paid, and that's really expensive for a hostel, like extremely expensive, even though I had a few nights solo. But that's just to show you how expensive it was during that time in Barcelona. So it would have been like double, triple if I would have stayed in a Airbnb or hotel. Now, Hostel One Parello was such a great experience for me. On the first night that I knew I definitely was going to stay all 8 nights that I booked. And so let me show you what I experienced when I first walked in. I want to show you what the hostel actually looks like. Welcome to Hostel One Parello. This is the first thing you see when you walk in, and then you see the welcome street sign of people who are checking in for the day. One thing I love about this hostel is that you can actually purchase a lock for your belongings here. You can also have your laundry done. They will wash, dry, and fold your clothes for €5 a load, which is a steal in Europe. And you can buy water and beer for $1. And now I'm showing you the bathroom and shared lounge area. And this is the kitchen area over here. And you can store your food. If you label it in the refrigerator, you can cook down here. And then this is where we also ate our family dinners. And there's always music playing in the common areas. And then I'm just showing you just a full view of everything. And I love this Hostel One Parello sign right here. Some people actually do play the guitar. And then I'm just showing you the outdoor area back here, and another small lounge area where I actually sat and watched movies with some other people. So there you have it. Now, one thing about Hostel One Parello, this hostel has group activities included in your cost of stay, which is why it's even more expensive than other hostels in the area. So there were hostels in Barcelona that I could have gotten for probably half the price for the mixed room, the women only room, because I didn't choose to stay in a mixed dorm room. I chose to stay in a women only room, but they didn't offer free activities, and they were not known for having the community that Hostel One Parello had. People who checked out to save money, like they booked it not knowing what to experience. So I met a lot of guys and women who booked in for a couple nights and went to another hostel. They ended up canceling that under booking and coming back and just paying more, because it was so much fun, because everyone just like wanted to be together and do stuff and just have a good time. And you don't experience that in every hostel. So what was my experience like? I was the oldest person in the hostel my entire stay. A lot of people didn't even know how old I was. I ended up sharing it on the first night because they were talking about partying to 7 in the morning, and I'm like, yeah, I'm too old for that. And they were like, what are you, like 25, 28? I'm like, I just turned 36 a couple weeks ago. So the days of me partying to 7 in the morning, that just doesn't excite me anymore. I am trying to be in the bed at 2 at the latest and 12, if I'm really being real. Like, I want to go out, like, have a good time. Brunches and day parties are me. That's my vibe. Not partying to 7 in the morning. So I definitely was the old lady in the crew, but I did not look it, thankfully. And everyone was in their early 20s. Some people were just graduating college. They were about to graduate college next year. They were just backpacking through Europe for the summer. A lot of the people that I met were from the States, and a lot were also from like New Zealand, Austria, Ireland, and they were in Barcelona for like a week or two before they went to like Amsterdam or something like that. So they were just passing through. So they were partying. And I was like, more power to you. I'm just here to do stuff and have fun, but not necessarily get drunk and party to the wee hours of the morning every day. So if you are looking for a party hostel, a turn up hostel, Hostel One Parello is for you. Well, that was my experience when I was there. So even though I was the oldest person there, I did meet people who were in their 30s. I actually met a married couple who were there. Like, married couples want to save money too. And it was a husband and wife who were in a room with 2 other people. Like, they each had their own bunk and they were sharing a room because they wanted to save money. And they were from the States. One was a teacher, and I can't remember what the other person did, but they were like, we're trying to make our money stretch. And they were traveling for like a month and a half. So you will meet all kind of people. And so they were in their 30s. As well, but for the most part, that Hostel One Parello was a young hostel, and I still had a great time. Now let me break down what I actually did during my stay at Hostel One. First night, I met a young woman, and she was like, we're going out to the club, you should go. And I'm like, I'm not going to no club. Like, I just got here. I just came from Paris, from hanging out with my best friend and my cousin. So I was already tired from that. I'm like, I'm just going to get settled, and I'm probably going to do something with everyone tomorrow night. And this was at the group, the hostel dinner. So I forgot to mention that every night at 8 p.m. there's a family dinner. You can go in the kitchen and eat with everyone. They had like bruschetta, or it would be like pasta salad. It was like a vegan friendly or vegan or vegetarian friendly meal that was cooked for free every day. You can tip the host who prepare the food. That was like the rule of thumb, or the code of honor, I should say, not rule of thumb. Like, that the honor code is like, okay, put €1 or something in the cup if you're coming down to have dinner. So at dinner, she's like, you should really come. We're just gonna go to the bar first and then go to the club. We have free entry to the club, so you might as well go. And the free entry was to Opium. And Opium is like one of the biggest clubs in Barcelona. This was on a Monday night. And I'm like, all right, I could just go ahead and throw on something real quick and go. So she convinced me to go. And I knew she was really young. And so when we were talking, I think she had 1 more year of college to finish up. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this is just taking me back. I really felt so old. But at that point, she didn't know how old I was. And so she was like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, I just quit my job and I'm just traveling the world. And she was like, oh. And then she was kind of like looking like, well, how old are you? But that didn't even really matter as so much as like the conversation and just everyone having a good time. So after dinner, I went back up to change, and they were pre-gaming, and they were lit. Let me tell you, several people missed their flight the next morning after we came back from I came back from the club at like 2:30. The married couple that I told you about, like, the wife and I like locked eyes and just looked at each other like, it's time to go. It was like 2 in the morning, and then we were over it. Opium was very good club. It started off with like hip hop, and it kind of turned into your like all of that. And I was like, yeah, I'm over it. They had the H2 blast going off. Like, it was a time, and it was packed. So I ended up walking back to the hostel with her and her husband. But the other people, they did not get home until like 8 in the morning, missed their flight, missed trains. So that was day 1. We went to the Room Bar, and we went to Opium nightclub. Day 2, I had my solo room. I gonna share with you what that solo room looked like, because I didn't even get a chance to really experience it because I just threw my bags down and got to family dinner and was going to the club. But this is my room, and to be honest, I did not like my solo room because it was a bunk bed. So if I paid for the cost of 2 people to have my own room. And so this is why I was in basically a jail cell, like, because I wanted the room to myself and there was no double beds available. I hated the room because it did not have natural sunlight. You see the window. I just felt like I was in a jail cell, and then I had this tiny desk. It was just, I did not like the room, but I was not in the room that much because I was always doing an activity with everyone in the hostel. So day 2 was a free walking tour, and I think it was me and only a couple other people went on the walking tour, and it was to the Sagrada Familia. And what I love most about this day was that I was able to catch the metro and to learn Barcelona a little better, because the group activities is going with a volunteer, they call them, because the people who work at the hostel are volunteering for free accommodations. So the volunteer, aka staff, they take you to the spot of wherever this free activity is and kind of just sit back. But it was cool to actually hop on a metro and kind of learn a little bit more how everything works with someone who had been there and was a little bit more familiar. So the Sagrada Familia tour was really informative. I had no idea what this was about, and this church has been in construction for almost 200 or over 200 years, and it's massive. Like, you see it now on the screen, but it's like when you're there, you're just like looking up. And the architect of this church was Gaudi, and this man, he dedicated his life's work to building this church. And it was originally for supposed to be a temple, but he had this vision to carry out, that he wanted to have like the front of the church represent the birth of Jesus, and then the back of the church represent the passion and him, being hung to the cross and all of that. So you see so much detail in the front part of this church, because Gaudi actually used like people and plaster people's faces and plaster them and like animals, so you can get the real effect of characters, not characters, but people from the Bible and Jesus, and all of that is on the front of the church. It's like breathtaking. I had no idea that this existed, so this was just something cool to see about for free and get to see a different part of Barcelona. I don't think that I probably would have done this on my own so early on. And honor system is to tip the tour guide whatever you feel the tour is worth. Day 2 doesn't stop with the walking tour. I actually went out again Tuesday night, and I was like, how am I going out on day 2 again? So family dinner, ate with people, and then we had like drinking games. I just drank a little bit, and then we went to the bar. I did not mention this on day 1. Like, partying starts, like the clubs start really, people start coming to the club really at 2 in the morning. So we went to the bar as a group at 10 p.m., right? And then we got to the club by midnight. So people usually don't get to the bar until 12 a.m. at Barcelona, and then they get to the club at 2 a.m. So we were starting really early based on the area. And so we went to a bar again, and then we went to, I think it's called Pacha Club. I personally, I didn't have as much fun as Pacha that I did at Opium. It was just chaotic trying to exit. Like, at first I started off having a really good time dancing, having just really enjoying the music and vibes, but it just went left. But I did appreciate free entry and being able to go with a group of people. Now on to day 3. Day 3 was pretty chill. I did beach day, and in the evening I needed a moment to myself. The introvert was kicking in. I'm like, okay, I'm meeting great people, been out nonstop up until this point with people, and so I took that evening to just walk around and have dinner by myself. This was the only time, not the only time, but one of the few times I actually enjoyed my dinner, and I went back to this spot a couple times. Barcelona just didn't have enough seasoning in their food for me, but this spot was really good. I kept getting salmon salad, but I really love good fresh salmon. So that was a good place to go for that. Day 4 is where I went on another walking tour, and this was to the Gothic Quarter. The Gothic Quarter tour was cool because I got to learn about the Catalonian people, and like recently they tried to revolt and be independent of Spain. And I learned about the Catalonian language. I knew that Spanish was not the only language spoken, like the primary language, I should say, of Barcelona, but learning about Catalonian language and the history there was really eye-opening. And also during the tour, I met a wonderful woman named Amber, and Amber and I hung out a few more times throughout my stay in Barcelona. And she was not in my actual hostel, but she was in another Hostel One, probably about 5 or 10 minutes away from my hostel. So Hostel One has 2 hostels in Barcelona. And whenever we do club nights or walking tours, both hostels meet up. So it's cool if you are not connecting with anyone in your hostel, you have an opportunity to meet more people in the neighboring hostel. And so after the Gothic Quarter walking tour, Amber and I grabbed lunch, and we decided to hang out in the evening, and we went to go see a famous guitar vocalist and guitarist in Spain, and then we also went to dinner. And so this is what I mean about hostels. You can meet people effortlessly just by putting in a little effort. You show up to something, you start having conversation. You don't have to overthink it and be like, I think I want to go on this tour. Hopefully I meet someone. Well, if you are a true introvert, you probably don't want to meet people, but I do need to have connections with people at times. So I'm like, okay, I don't have to overthink it. People are solo, they're on the same vibe as me. And so Amber was one of those people. Now the following day, maybe backing up for the following, the next day was another chill activity day. And we actually, both hostels went out that night for the St. Juan Festival, which is kind of similar to the 4th of July in the States in the fact of them having fireworks. It's a big celebration. People are out popping fireworks all day, and it just took over the entire beach. Like, it was really, it happens at night and everyone wears all white. I did not get the memo, so I did not pack anything white, and I was definitely not buying anything white for this. So it was just cool just to see a tradition in Spain that I wasn't familiar with. And then I went out to the nightclub again. So a lot of going out is why I really enjoyed my time at Hostel One Parello. And then we had the Pride Festival, another hostel link up, and this was during the day. It was very hot, but we just had so much fun and dancing in the streets, drinking, all of that. And then later on that night, I ended up going out to dinner with everyone that Amber introduced me to some people at her hostel, and we ended up going out to dinner. So I just want to say that my overall first experience at a hostel was just truly amazing. I felt safe the whole time. My solo room was on a floor that had mostly males, so I had to share a bathroom with mostly males. That sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. And the room that I shared with the 3 other women was cool as well. Like, I ended up going out to lunch with one of them. It's just like, if you are traveling by yourself and you really want a chance to meet people, you should really consider staying at a hostel. Don't think that you're too old to go. You will find people and connect, because the thing about hostels is you're not trying to meet your new best friend. Right? People are not staying there long term. They're there for an average of 1 to 4 nights. I was an outlier for staying so long and staying so long in the hostel, but I definitely don't regret it. So you're just making connections with people And going out to lunch is like not like, again, meeting your best friend, trying to find the love of your life if you are single. None of that is really the goal. The goal is just to connect and move on. And you end up finding, not finding, but you end up connecting with each other on IG. And it's so funny because I'm still like commenting and messaging people that I met in Barcelona like over 2 months ago at this point that I'm recording this, just because I stayed in the hostel. If I haven't convinced you of all the cool activities that I did for free, well, not really for free because it was in the high price that I paid for the hostel, hopefully you will begin to change your mindset if this doesn't intrigue you, because I think if you are traveling solo, you should at least try a hostel for one night. Get a private room with an ensuite if you're like, I'm not trying to be sharing bathrooms with people, but it's really a good way. So if you have any questions for me, leave them in the comment section below. If you have any kudos to give me, if you're a fellow introvert who, you have to really do a lot to get out of your comfort zone to meet people, let me know your thoughts below. And if you have any hostel suggestions throughout Europe, if you have stayed in hostels that you're like, you should check out, please let me know. Until next time, bye.